Welcome to Flip Classroom. Today's lesson is creating an outline for the claim of policy essay. As a review, a claim of policy essay argues that a certain condition should exist, and it advocates for adoption of policies or actions because a problem needs to be resolved. The beginning of your essay would introduce the problem, explaining to the readers that a problem exists. Through your research, you will use different forms of persuasion, possibly pathos, personal stories that persuade the audience that a problem exists, logos, that would be statistics and facts, and even ethos, that is the expert testimony. When developing your outline, think of your essay as two parts. Part one is research-based evidence that proves a problem does exist. Part two is evidence of the best solution to resolve the problem. This solution could take one of three forms. Either you are arguing that a new policy should be enacted, or changes to the current policy should be made, or the old policy should be completely revamped. While researching the issue, one of your research questions should be, what steps should be taken to resolve this problem? The answer to that question is your policy, which you will be turning into your thesis statement, the opinion or claim that you're trying to prove. Your research is the evidence, the experts that agree your solution will work, and what steps should be taken to resolve the problem. But you also need the opposition point of view. You must acknowledge that there's skeptics, that even though there are alternative solutions, you will explain why those alternatives are less viable. In other words, why your policy is the best policy. So when you develop your essay, think of it in two sections. What is the problem and what is the solution? In this example, I have the essay divided into 5 sections. Starting with the introduction paragraph, that would have a hook and catchy opening and some background information on the topic. In the introduction paragraph, you would not use research-based evidence, just common knowledge. And then the most important, the thesis statement. The next section of the essay is what is the problem? You'd have research-based evidence explaining the who, what, when, where, why, how, and what steps, if any, have been taken to previously resolve this problem. Were these steps effective or ineffective? Or possibly no steps have ever been taken to resolve this problem. Your research will answer these questions. The third section is your policy proposal. You're answering the question, what should be done? This will be very similar to your thesis statement. You will also use research-based evidence from experts that support this new or changed policy. The next section is your opposition. These are the experts that disagree with your policy. These are experts that have alternative approaches. They think it is better to handle the problem in a different way. You would conclude this section with your rebuttal by explaining why aren't these alternative approaches as viable, as effective, as good as the proposed policy that you have put forth. Then you'd end with your conclusion section, restating the thesis, having a call to action to tell your readers what they should do now that they agree with your proposal, and a universal truth or global insight. Now I'd like to take the template and apply it to a specific topic. I'll start with the introduction paragraph. The thesis could be, despite the good that results from renovating housing in low-income neighborhoods, gentrification is a racist practice that can be resolved with changes in economic policies. I have to describe what is the problem. Through research, I would define gentrification and how it's adding to the growing number of homeless people of color. I would look at the steps that have been taken, that there's few real estate loans for housing in communities with substandard residencies. And these very few loans are given to people of color. That's ineffective. Research is showing that more white people, more people of high socioeconomic status are getting the real estate loans. They are not going to people of color. After I've presented the problem, I would do my policy proposal, which is very similar to my thesis. I'm answering the question, what should be done? And here's the claim. The federal government should assist low-income people of color to improve the housing in communities with substandard residences. And I'd have experts supporting this policy. I'd have experts saying loans should be given to people of color, that housing improvements should be done by the people that currently live there, not outsiders coming in. For example, in Silicon Valley, rich people coming into Oakland and buying out the older homes, fixing them up, and outpricing the people that generally lived there. Then I'd move on to my opposition. I'd have the experts that are disagreeing with this policy of the federal government getting involved, helping people of color fix their housing. These experts have an alternative approach. They would say any investor with good credit should get loans to fix housing in neighborhoods. It shouldn't be focused just on people of color. My rebuttal, my response to that, to answer why aren't these approaches as viable as the proposed policy, I would use evidence to prove that people who have lived in the same neighborhoods for generations have stronger ties to communities than investors. As the cliche goes, they have more skin in the game. So instead of having wealthy people from the outside knocking down old homes to build mansions, people who live in those homes should be given money to fix them up, to improve the neighborhood. And overall, this will be cost effective. And once again, I'd have research-based evidence to prove this. Similar to the template, I'd restate my thesis, my call to action. What I'm telling my readers to do is they should vote in support of these policies. They should educate the neighborhoods about the importance of people within the neighborhood taking care of themselves instead of having outsiders come in and make a profit. They should write letters to the politicians. They should get involved in community-based activities. Notice how I used verbs. Write, protest, educate, get involved. Claims, calls to action are verbs. And then a universal truth. Helping people, giving people the tools to help themselves is an anti-racist practice, whether it has to do with housing, education, or any other social justice issue. Giving people the tools to help themselves is the best approach. So in review, you are writing an outline in 2 sections. Part 1, what is the problem? Part 2, what is the solution? Your policy proposal. These are the steps to write your claim of policy essay proposal. Best of luck, and thank you for joining me today in Flip Classroom.